What's going on there, YouTube? Welcome back to another comic book video. Okay, so we're going to continue our coverage over the X-Men. Now, as you all know, we're currently covering Fatal Attractions. And with us covering Fatal Attractions, it's time for us to dive back into the main storyline once again. And we pick up with the 4th chapter, X-Men issue number 25. Now, this is really important because this is the moment where you have Magneto ripping off the adamantium off the bones of Wolverine. And for the next few years in Marvel Comics, Wolverine would be almost completely different. A character where most fans were not really a fan of because the way he looked and the way he acted. And you see what I mean as we go through today's video, but other videos down the road when it comes to our coverage over the X-Men. Now, this is a very huge moment as well for Magneto because it's going to lead into the Onslaught saga down the road when it comes to our coverage over the X-Men. But getting into today's issue, and so as we dive into the first page for today's video, we do pick at all the different nations around the world who are coming together to decide what to do when it comes to Magneto. Should they use the Magneto Protocol? Now, the Magneto Protocol is very important for today's video, but also because when it came to Magneto in the earlier parts of our coverage over Fatal Attractions, we saw that Magneto was able to build a base called Avalon out in space, floating right over the Earth. And so for a lot of nations out there, they were kind of worried about the idea that Magneto might try to use that space base as a way to attack the different nations who were going against Magneto and what he was trying to achieve for the mutant race. And so now they're trying to use the Magneto Protocol as a way to protect the Earth, but to hopefully keep him away from Earth from the time being. Now, for the United Nations, they do have a good idea of how to keep Magneto away from the Earth. You see, they had all these different satellites around the Earth, and these different satellites were being used as a way to build up some kind of force field around the Earth. Not a force field, but some kind of field around the Earth that would cancel out the powers of Magneto. So if he tries to come back to Earth, his powers are not going to work at all because he will be inside that field that they had built up. And so for Magneto, it really does tick him off. But here's the thing, for Magneto, he's not trying to go to war against the human race. For him, all he wants to do is take different mutants around the world and bring them back over to Avalon, his space station base. He just wants to give the mutant race a new home away from the human race as a way to protect them. But now with his field being around the Earth, Magneto is no longer able to go back down to Earth to get more mutants and bring them over to Avalon, because if he tries, his powers are not going to work. And so you have Magneto say, fine, if you're going to try to cancel out me, I am now going to try to cancel out you. And so he releases a EMP across the entire world. Like I said, this EMP is affecting the entire world. For example, we jump over to the Fantastic Four, and you have Ben Grimm getting upset because he believes that Reed was playing some kind of trick on him, but then he realized that no, Reed's right now freaking out because Reed is wondering who in the world had just released that kind of powerful pulse across the entire world. We know who it is, but they have no idea. And the trend continues on because we then jump over to Japan and we see Sunfire realizing what is happening across the entire world and also his country as well. We jump over to Great Britain and we pick up with Excalibur for Captain Britain and Nightcrawler. They're also being affected by this EMP that Magneto had just released across the entire world. And so with the entire world being affected by this EMP, of course it gets back over to the X-Men. And so you have the X-Men be lucky, as some places are, to have a second generator to use as a backup, but to also bring their power back online. But now the X-Men know who had done it. And so this leads into a meeting between both the gold team and the blue team of the X-Men. Now, before we dive into this meeting, I want to shift our focus over to Charles Xavier, because for Charles Xavier, this is a man who's kind of now believing in the idea of going down the path of Magneto. And what I mean by that statement is that for Charles Xavier, he's still trying to achieve the goals of mutants and humans being able to live together in harmony, but at the same time, still trying to lead the mutant race into a better place. But for Magneto, who's also trying to lead the mutant race into a better place, the two guys are both trying to achieve that goal, but in different ways. And so for Charles Xavier, he is slowly becoming like Magneto with the idea of go ahead and crossing that line as a way to achieve the different goals that he has set for himself. And the reason why I'm bringing that up, because as we dive into this meeting and you have the X-Men say like, listen, Magneto had released an EMP basically across the entire world. And you had trains, planes crashing all over the world, killing countless lives because Magneto was angry for what the UN had did using the Magneto protocols. And so now it's the X-Men saying there is a war possibly coming very soon. And so the X-Men must step in and stop the war coming before more lives are lost. But for Charles Xavier, it really seems like he is okay with the possibility of crossing that line to protect the world, to stop Magneto. So for the X-Men, they're trying to build up a game plan. But for Charles Xavier, this is a man who had already built a game plan up. First, he says, I am going on this mission because he was able to get a Shi'ar exoskeleton suit to use as a way to walk around. But he has to use his psychic abilities to make the suit actually work. But either way, for Charles Xavier, we could tell this man had already put a team together and a plan together. So for example, he's going to bring Wolverine and Gambit. And the reason why, because those two guys are great when it comes to being stealthy. But then on top of that, it'll be him and Jean Grey. They need both powerful psychics to attack the mind of Magneto as a way to attack him. But then you have Charles bringing in Rogue and also Quicksilver. Now, here's the reason why, because these are two characters who have feelings towards Magneto. Quicksilver, the son of Magneto, and Rogue, not officially an ex-lover just yet, but she did have some hard feelings for Magneto that did not reach the potential of the two characters getting together. But it's way to say, if I can bring in these two characters who have some connection to Magneto, I could use that as a way to bring him down to a defensive position so I'm able to attack his mind in a better position. Now, when they do arrive on Avalon, you have the X-Men being able to sneak on. Now, here's the thing. We have to remember that when it came to the earlier parts of Fatal Attractions, Colossus had joined Magneto. Now, for Colossus, it was really more because this man lost his entire family. His brother committed suicide. His parents were killed off by the Russian government. And then his sister died by the legacy virus. It's him saying like, I was on your side, Charles Xavier, trying to help you reach your goals. But unfortunately, with me trying to do that, I had lost my entire family in a short period of time. And so it's him kind of believing that Magneto might be a better answer for the mutant race. But it seems like Colossus is still working for the X-Men. And the reason why, because it seems like he is able to turn off all the different security systems in Avalon to make sure that those systems cannot detect the X-Men who had just teleported onto Avalon, to allow them the chance to sneak around the entire base. Now, before we are able to kind of see the X-Men begin to attack Magneto in his base, you have our heroes run into two characters, Fire Fist and Skid. Now, we have talked a lot about these characters in the earlier parts of our coverage over the X-Men when we were covering the Mutant Massacre, Fall of the Mutants, Inferno, because they did play some bigger roles in those comic events when it came to the X-Men, because they were part of X Factor. They were the trainees of X Factor in the early days of that comic book series. But by this point in the coverage over the X-Men, they kind of fell off completely. And so they're kind of just used as a way to move stories along. And that's really it. Like, for example, you have our heroes run into Fire Fist and Skid. Now, the last time our heroes had heard about these two characters, they had been brainwashed by Strife, and they were on his side back in the Executioner song. But their minds was cured by Magneto. Now, here's the thing, because for Fire Fist and also Skid, our heroes still believe in the possibility that maybe they're still brainwashed. But you have our two young heroes saying, no, we're not brainwashed. We truly believe that Magneto might be the best thing for the mutant race. Now, before you have the X-Men be able to debate against these two young mutants, you have Charles Xavier use his powers to put them to sleep because they have to move on with their mission. But now it's time for us to get into the plan of the X-Men. So for Charles Xavier, what he did was he sent Quicksilver out to put a disk inside the main computer of Avalon. Here's the reason why, because now with the main computer being under control by Charles Xavier, he's then able to begin to teleport different members of Magneto's acolytes off Avalon to kind of only leave Magneto by himself and maybe just a few members of the acolytes to make things easier for the X-Men. But here comes the problem. You see, as soon as our heroes had did that, Magneto realized what was happening. Magneto realized this was an attack done by the X-Men. And so this man just rips a hole through Avalon to find the X-Men, and this begins the battle between our heroes and their number one enemy. Now, the first 2 pages of this battle I truly love because you have Wolverine thinking like, you know what, I can take Magneto down by myself. I don't need any help at all. And you have Magneto like, really? You believe that you have the ability to bring me down? Wrong. And send Wolverine flying away easily. Now, for Rogue, it's more of like, listen, she was somebody he was very close to. He actually cared for, maybe even loved. And so it's kind of like, can Rogue bring Magneto down to make him realize that what he is doing is completely wrong? Yeah, no. For Magneto, this is the man who's too driven right now to just give up on his goals. And so he sends Rogue away as well. Now you do have Gambit being able to hit Magneto right in the face to then allow Charles Xavier and also Jean Grey to begin doing work on his mind. Now, what Charles Xavier and Jean Grey are trying to do, it seems like, is to have Magneto relive different moments of his past. But here's the thing. What they're trying to do is to help him recognize that the past is the past. Like, let it go. It happened in the past and you have to move on. But they're also trying to show Magneto everything he did wrong in the past to kind of help him realize the path he had taken many years ago was the wrong path to take. And so they're hoping that this could possibly work. But now we have to shift our focus over to Quicksilver. Because Charles Xavier realized that for Quicksilver, he is something he could use to attack the mind of Magneto as well. Because as Magneto, he has failed as a father for 3 different people. Now remember, we don't technically know just yet that Polaris is also the daughter of Magneto. They have not revealed that just yet. For right now, in this timeline for Marvel, he only had 3 kids. Anya, who died in the past, Quicksilver, and the Scarlet Witch. But it's Quicksilver saying, look at what I have become. It's because the way you tried to raise me. It's the way you tried to be a father to me. And now here I am, a man who's not really able to be with his wife and his daughter. And let's not forget, back over in X Factor, that was a big thing. It was Quicksilver trying to hopefully repair his family, bring them back together, to be with his wife, to be with his daughter. But unfortunately, they can't do it because the way he is, because of Magneto, because he's trying to run away from his past. run away from his connections to his father, who's not a good man at all. But for Magneto, it's all like, listen, I'm being attacked in many different ways, but I gotta stay focused. And so now it's Magneto possibly thinking of killing off his son for going against him. But luckily for Quicksilver, you have Wolverine jump back into the battle. Now, for Wolverine, he understands what's happening here. Magneto is very serious about killing off his son. And because Wolverine is great with stealth, he was able to sneak up on Magneto and cut him across his chest. Now, at first, we don't see any blood because I guess the comic code back then, but like, hey, come on now. We already know the man got messed up by Wolverine claws. But for Magneto, he's not down yet. And so he knows he has to make he knows he has to make Wolverine pay. Sorry for that. But this is the moment where it changes a lot for Wolverine and later comics when it comes to our coverage over the X-Men, but also for other X books as well. Because you didn't have Magneto rip off the adamantium off the bones of Wolverine just like that. And Charles Xavier gets very angry to see what Magneto has done to one of his X-Men. And so for Charles Xavier, enough is enough. He's tired of the killing. He's tired of the battles against Magneto. And so you have Charles Xavier say, you know what? That's it. I'm going to take your mind away. And so we see Charles Xavier being able to do that. And it seems like that Magneto has now fallen into a state where he's technically in a coma. That's it. He's gone. Magneto has lost his mind thanks to Charles Xavier. Now, the book kind of ends on the note where you have Colossus appear. Now, remember, Colossus was the one who brought down a security system on Avalon to allow the X-Men to sneak on. But for Colossus, he's still on Magneto's side. He's all like, listen, I have lost my entire family. Somebody gotta be here to help out Magneto, to take care of him, because right now, he's in a state where he's not able to take care of himself. And so you have the X-Men leave, thanks to Bishop flying a Blackbird up there, and hopefully they can save the lives of Charles Xavier and also Wolverine. But this ends today's video for this chapter of Fatal Attractions, as we now move into the next chapter, which is Wolverine issue number 75, the 5th chapter of Fatal Attractions. But again, guys, this is where we're going to end today's comic book video. So please leave me a like down below and subscribe. Guys, see y'all next time. Later.